Hey everyone, I'm posting this from a throwaway account because I prefer to keep my main account free from this kind of stuff. So here's the deal. I'm a 28-year-old guy who, about a year ago, decided to take a leap and start my own business. I didn't do it alone though, I had a little help from a few friends from college. It's been quite a journey, but I'm happy to report that we've been doing really well. In fact, we're actually making a profit now, which feels amazing. But here's where things get interesting. A couple of days ago, I heard from my parents. We're talking about the same parents who haven't really been in touch with me since I graduated from college. They're both 52, and to put it mildly, our relationship has been pretty strained. Out of the blue, they reached out to me with a proposal. They want to know if I'd be open to the idea of them joining my business as partners. Apparently, they're interested in investing in what I've built. It's a lot to process, especially considering our rocky history. I decided against it. I didn't even bring it up with my friends because they all know about the difficult relationship I have with my parents. The thought of involving them in my business just didn't sit right with me at all. Throughout my childhood and growing up, my parents weren't exactly supportive. Instead, they often neglected me and made fun of me, which always struck me as odd. I was the kind of kid that many parents would usually be proud of. Both of my parents are quite successful in their careers. My dad is an airline pilot and my mom is anesthesiologist. You could say I was raised in a household that valued high achievement, and naturally I grew up to be very ambitious from a young age. Despite this, for reasons I've never fully understood, my parents never really showed any support for my endeavors. Instead, they would mock me for being what they considered too nerdy. This background is precisely why I felt it wasn't a good idea to mix my family dynamics with my business operations. My venture is something I've built with positivity and hard work, alongside friends who believe in me and what we're doing. Introducing my parents into this equation, considering our past, didn't seem like a move that would benefit anyone involved. My parents were well off financially, yet they hardly contributed to even my basic needs, acting out of what seemed like pure spite. For the longest time, I couldn't understand why they harbored such intense dislike towards me. It wasn't until a heart-to-heart with my aunt, my dad's younger sister, who's now 46, that I began to see the bigger picture. She was the one person who really got where I was coming from. When I was 16, she opened up about the real reason behind my parents' seemingly irrational behavior and disdain towards me. She believed I was mature enough to handle the truth. They blamed me for not achieving the level of success they had aspired to. Despite their considerable success, they never reached the fame they had hoped for, and astonishingly, they saw me as the reason. My aunt revealed that my parents felt the time, money, and effort spent on raising me was a missed opportunity. They believed that if they had directed those resources towards their careers instead, they would have been more successful in their fields. Their decision to have me was not born out of a genuine desire for parenthood, but rather due to familial pressure. They didn't actually want a child, but once they had me, they felt trapped and resorted to bullying and constantly belittling me as their way of coping. As a result, my childhood was marked by deprivation. Sure, the bills were paid and the basic necessities were covered, but I lacked any form of emotional support or encouragement from them. This neglect and their treatment of me as an unwanted obligation rather than a cherished family member left deep scars that influenced our relationship profoundly. My parents were never there for me, not for small things like homework or school projects, and certainly not for the big stuff like conflicts at school. If I ever expressed a desire for something that wasn't strictly necessary, they would dismiss me outright, or even worse, ridicule me. They often made fun of my appearance, which wasn't difficult for them since I was rather skinny and had a geeky look. They also didn't miss an opportunity to belittle my passion for computers, predicting my future as just another IT guy, implying that investing in my interests and aspirations was a pointless endeavor. This emotional neglect was compounded by constant insults, which sadly I grew accustomed to during my upbringing. At the time, it somehow became my twisted norm. I internalized their disdain to mean there was something inherently wrong with me, which explained their lack of affection compared to how other parents treated their children. Looking back, it's clear how messed up the whole situation was. As I navigated my teenage years, I began to push back against their treatment, only to be met with harsh threats from my dad, who claimed he would throw me out on the streets if I didn't fall in line. In search of some solace, I turned to my aunt, the one family member who seemed to understand and care. She repeatedly offered to intervene on my behalf, even suggesting reporting them, but I always declined. The fear of the unknown, coupled with not wanting to impose on her or anyone else, kept me from accepting her help. I felt it was better to endure the situation at home, finding brief moments of relief in conversations with my aunt. Upon learning the root cause of my parents' behavior from my aunt, I made a silent vow to myself to cut ties with them completely. The realization that they blamed me for their unfulfilled ambitions was the final straw, cementing my decision to remove myself from their lives and start anew, free from their toxic influence. After finishing high school, my journey took a turn that was less about what I wanted and more about what my parents refused to provide. Despite their financial capabilities, they chose to send me to public school. I don't mean to come across as arrogant, but looking back, I feel like that decision didn't fully utilize my capabilities. This should have been a clear indication of their indifference towards my education and, frankly, towards me as a whole. Yet, I held on to some hope that they would support me when it mattered most. That hope was shattered when they coldly informed me that once high school was over and I turned 18, I would no longer have a place in their home unless I made something of myself. To add insult to injury, they also declared they wouldn't be contributing to my college tuition. This was the moment I reached my breaking point, confronting them with the belief in my bright future, backed by a history of academic excellence. Their response was both shocking and hurtful. They dismissed my potential and achievements, telling me not to overestimate my future prospects, even going as far as to mockingly suggest that my peak would be a lowly IT guy fixing computers, as if that was a position unworthy of respect. Their narrow-minded view failed to recognize that IT professionals possess a wealth of knowledge and skill, deserving of just as much respect as any other profession. However, trying to change their minds or argue for their financial support for college was futile. Facing their unwavering stance, I made the difficult decision to leave home a few weeks shy of my 18th birthday, seeking refuge with my aunt. It was there I began the arduous process of applying for colleges, aiming for scholarships to secure my education without their help. Despite continued attempts to convince my parents otherwise, they remained obstinate. Ultimately, the plan became to attend whichever college offered the most significant reduction in tuition, ensuring my future was still within my grasp, despite the lack of parental support. Fortuitously, I secured admission into a college that offered me an 80% scholarship, which also boasted a respectable computer science program. This was a development that left me quite content, and my aunt, who works in sales and earns a modest income, generously offered to cover the remaining tuition costs. Her financial situation might not have been as robust as my parents', placing her firmly in the middle class. Yet her willingness to support me made all the difference, especially since the scholarship significantly reduced my tuition fees. My time in college was structured around minimizing my return home. I preferred staying in my dorm, partly because my aunt's job required her to travel frequently. This arrangement suited me perfectly as I embarked on my college journey. Moving out of my parents' home marked the beginning of a significant improvement in my well-being. Freed from the constant anxiety and worry, I found myself happier and more open, which led to forming friendships that were once challenging for me to cultivate. It was through these new connections that I met the individuals who would later become not only my closest friends, but also my business partners. Together, we established our own IT firm, which to our delight has been performing quite well. Initially, I assumed my parents would remain indifferent to my achievements, given their historical lack of interest. However, upon learning of my impending graduation and the honor of being named valedictorian, they expressed a desire to attend the ceremony. Their intentions were thwarted, as I had neither provided them with tickets nor extended an invitation, given our estranged relationship. After the ceremony, I was taken aback to find them waiting with my aunt, who appeared as displeased as I was, likely having endured their company post-graduation. What was supposed to be a celebration with my friends turned into 2 hours of contentious debate in my parents' hotel room. They expressed their frustration at being excluded from the graduation, contrasting their absence with my aunt's presence. Their complaints were ironic, considering their decision to effectively disown me at 18, refusing to contribute to my college expenses despite their ability to do so. This confrontation brought to the forefront the years of neglect, emotional turmoil, and mistreatment they had inflicted upon me throughout my life, casting a shadow over what should have been a day of pure celebration. I felt they didn't warrant an explanation for my actions, but to avoid a scene outside my college, I begrudgingly led them to their hotel where I eventually reached my boiling point. I made it clear to them that I wished to sever all ties, warning that any further attempts at contact would prompt me to seek a restraining order. Then, I left to join my friends, determined not to let my parents' presence overshadow my achievements. Following the confrontation, I cut off communication with them. My aunt later informed me that they were both upset and considering writing me out of their will, a threat that held no weight for me, as I had no expectations of inheritance from them. That marked the end of our interactions. Fast forward nearly 7 years, and out of nowhere they reached out again, having obtained my number from my aunt under the pretense of wanting to apologize. A heads up she meant to give me but forgot due to her busy schedule, which I understood. However, their call lacked the apology I was led to expect, instead diving straight into a business proposition. They now saw value in associating with me, a stark contrast to their previous stance. Without hesitation, I declined their offer and proceeded to block their number, a decision I shared with my friends who fully supported me, knowing well the strain my parents had put on our family dynamics. What I didn't anticipate was their retaliatory move the next day, a bitter Facebook post tagging me and my friends. In it, they attempted to discredit my success, painting me not as the self-made individual I am, but falsely claiming my achievements were the result of daddy's money. This public attempt to undermine my credibility and the legitimacy of my business was a new low, yet it only solidified my resolve to keep them out of my life for good. The Facebook post my parents made, claiming I was ungrateful for their supposed years of support, left me utterly shocked. I nearly reached out to confront them directly, but chose a different route instead. For years, I had archived videos from my teenage days, a period when I meticulously recorded my daily life to potentially illustrate their inadequate parenting in a legal setting if it ever came to that. These recordings showcased their dismissive and mocking behavior towards me, treating me as if I were the biggest burden on their lives. I had refrained from sharing these videos publicly, wishing to distance myself from any drama associated with them. However, their recent attempt to undermine me on social media prompted a change of heart. I decided to retaliate by sharing these videos, potentially crossing into controversial territory. Using my public Instagram account, I detailed my tumultuous history with my parents in lengthy captions and posted the videos to highlight their true colors. Following this, I informed my lawyer about the situation, who, unbeknownst to me, had already begun preparing a defamation lawsuit against my parents for their slanderous accusations. Next on my list was to consult with my business partners, as their reputations were implicated in the Facebook smear as well. The situation escalated quickly, with some of my relatives and my parents' acquaintances commenting on the post, applauding my so-called exposure, and expressing their reluctance to ever collaborate with our business. This move of mine, to publicly call out my parents, might be seen by some as an overstep, but it was a response to their public disparagement and a step towards defending my integrity and that of my company. Given the situation, we certainly had a solid basis for legal action. I took the precaution of forwarding the incriminating screenshots to my attorney for safekeeping and made sure to inform my business partners about the unfolding events to ensure they were fully aware of the situation. After setting these wheels in motion, I anticipated a call from my parents, perhaps even hoping for an apology. Surprisingly, they did reach out, but not with the remorse I expected. Instead, they used my aunt's phone to demand an apology from me, critiquing my decision to share those videos on a platform where they could be seen by a broader audience, given my substantial follower count. They argued that their Facebook rant was limited to their personal circles, whereas my Instagram post exposed them to a much wider audience, leading to a barrage of negative reactions, including hateful messages and even threats. They feared the repercussions could extend to their professional lives, especially if their employers stumbled upon the content, showcasing them in a negative light. In response, I stood my ground, asserting that they had brought this upon themselves before ending the call. Nevertheless, I decided to archive the posts and took a brief hiatus from my phone. Upon returning, I found an email from my parents. It contained a semblance of an apology for past grievances, but quickly shifted tone to criticize my actions. They labeled my response as egregious, highlighting the legal implications of sharing personal videos without their consent, which, according to them, opened the door for potential legal action against me as well. This development added another layer to our already complicated relationship, indicating that while they recognized some fault for the past, they were also prepared to contest the manner in which I chose to defend myself. It seems that my parents were hit with the defamation lawsuit, which led them to warn me about retracting it, hinting at exposing my supposed unethical behavior to negatively influence my business. After discussing this with my business partners, the consensus is clear. There's no justifiable reason for us to withdraw the lawsuit. They firmly believe we've acted appropriately, in stark contrast to my parents, who have resorted to falsehoods and manipulation to tarnish my reputation. Despite their attempts to discredit me, I'm wrestling with feelings of guilt over proceeding with the lawsuit, especially after receiving their apology via email. I understand that pursuing legal action will likely cast a shadow over all involved due to the negative attention it garners. However, after much contemplation and discussion, particularly considering my business partners and the potential impact on our firm, I've decided to move forward with the lawsuit. This decision wasn't made in isolation. It considers the wider implications on my business and the well-being of my partners. Despite the relatively limited reach of my parents' original post, its intent was clear: to harm my reputation, and by extension, my business. The decision to sue for defamation feels justified, given their efforts to malign my character and jeopardize my professional achievements for their own satisfaction. Furthermore, the sincerity of their apology is questionable at best, seeming more like a strategic move to protect their own interests rather than a genuine expression of remorse. Their readiness to apologize only when faced with potential repercussions for their careers suggests their intentions weren't truly apologetic, but rather self-serving. Thus, proceeding with the lawsuit appears to be the most appropriate course of action under the circumstances. For much of my life, I've held back from confronting my parents, largely out of fear. Approaching my 30s, I still find myself intimidated by the prospect of standing up to them, a testament to the deeply ingrained fear that has shaped my interactions with them. This realization didn't hit me until many of you in the comments highlighted the numerous occasions I missed to reveal the truth about my parents' behavior. This avoidance wasn't a conscious choice, but a response driven by fear of the potential fallout. However, I've come to understand that they no longer have power over me. I'm in control now. Their ability to affect my life is limited, which emboldens me to pursue legal action against them, regardless of their lukewarm apology. I'm committed to ensuring they face consequences for their actions. The time for me to play the benevolent part is over, especially when it concerns individuals who have shown nothing but cruelty. The environment I was raised in was far from what any child should experience, and now that I'm in a position to seek justice, I intend to seize that opportunity. No longer will I maintain the higher ground just for the sake of it, not when they continue to target me in their quest for attention. Their behavior is reprehensible, and I refuse to tolerate it any longer. In a recent update, my aunt reached out to inquire about my decision regarding my parents. I informed her that we are indeed moving forward with the lawsuit, marking a definitive step in addressing the wrongs of my past and holding them accountable for their actions. My aunt expressed her satisfaction with my decision to proceed with the lawsuit and shared her pride in me, which meant a lot. She also offered an apology for not being more involved during my childhood. However, I hold no resentment towards her. I understand that during those times she was navigating her own challenges, trying to establish her career, which made it difficult for her to provide the support I needed. Yet, when it truly mattered, she stepped in and made a significant difference in my life, for which I am deeply thankful. My family, particularly my grandparents, were utterly devoted to my parents, making it unlikely they would ever accept the truth about how I was treated. Had my aunt attempted to intervene through official channels like CPS, the outcomes could have been unpredictable, possibly landing me in foster care or a similar situation. I recognize she's not flawless, but I feel compelled to defend her against criticism, considering she was the sole family member who stood by me, offering whatever support she could. The value of her actions, right or wrong in the eyes of others, was immeasurable to me. Since the email exchange with my parents, there has been silence on their end, likely as they await my decision regarding the lawsuit. It's been 4 days, and we're moving towards mediation with a court-appointed mediator in hopes of reaching an out-of-court settlement before considering taking the matter to trial. The aim is not to exploit my parents' financial resources, they indeed have plenty, but to hold them accountable for their actions. The turmoil at their workplaces following the public revelations suggests that the repercussions of their actions are already unfolding. In navigating this situation, the priority remains clear: to seek justice for the wrongs committed, free of any guilt, understanding that the responsibility for these circumstances lies entirely with them. The backlash I received after sharing those videos, highlighting how my actions supposedly jeopardized their careers, was an eye-opening experience. The level of gaslighting and melodrama in their calls and emails was astonishing. Fortunately, I remained steadfast, not allowing their manipulative tactics to sway me, which would have been a disservice to myself. It's almost laughable how they attempted to draw parallels between our actions, as if my decision to share the truth was somehow equivalent or even worse than their campaign of lies against me. Their efforts to tarnish my reputation were met with my straightforward response, showcasing their true behavior to the world. I'm seriously considering keeping those videos public post-mediation as a testament to their actions, ensuring their true characters are revealed for all to see. Recently, the court appointed a mediator for our case, and following this development, my parents reached out. Temporarily unblocking them facilitated this necessary dialogue, during which they inquired about the withdrawal of the lawsuit, under the impression that the situation was spiraling. I firmly informed them that I had no intention of backing down, which led to an explosive reaction. The call was a cacophony of anger and frustration, making it difficult to discern their exact words amid the chaos. When they called again, my father directly expressed his irritation, dismissing my actions as futile attempts at intimidation. I seized the moment to confront them with the full extent of my grievances, sparing no detail. It was a cathartic exchange, allowing me to vocalize years of pent-up feelings. Following this vehement declaration, I ended the call, refusing them the opportunity for rebuttal. Despite this closure, they persisted in their attempts to reach me, illustrating the depth of our unresolved tensions. This ongoing conflict, while challenging, has been a crucial step in asserting my autonomy and addressing the injustices of my upbringing. My parents reached out to my aunt, spinning a tale that I was taking legal action against them for baseless reasons, in a clear attempt to manipulate her empathy to their advantage. They hoped she could convince me to halt the lawsuit. However, my aunt is no longer easily swayed by their tactics. Their past manipulations, especially involving family court, have lost their effect on her. True to form, she echoed my stance back to them, offering her sympathy, but firmly stating she would not intervene in their favor. She even went a step further, warning that any further harassment would not only cost them her sympathy, but could lead to her reporting their incessant bothering to the authorities. Her stance was a significant show of support for me. For a while, there was silence from their end, a brief respite until later that day. After failing to sway my aunt, my parents widened their net, reaching out to every family member they could, painting me as the aggressor in a legal battle they claimed was unfounded. Soon, my phone was flooded with messages echoing the same sentiment. The lack of originality in their approach was almost comical. It was apparent they had distributed a standard message for relatives to forward to me, hoping to overwhelm me into reconsideration. The identical wording in most messages only highlighted their desperate strategy, making it blatantly obvious that this was a coordinated effort by my parents to sway my decision through familial pressure. This clumsy attempt at manipulation did little more than affirm my resolve, making it clear they were willing to use any means, however transparent, to avoid facing the consequences of their actions. It's quite disheartening to witness the lengths my parents are going to in an attempt to rectify the situation now that they realize the gravity of their predicament. The legal proceedings have officially started, and we're currently on a break. I've just had lunch, and am taking this moment to share an update. Throughout this process, my parents have exhibited a level of hostility that's hard to ignore, yet it's evident they're on the losing side of this battle. They're facing a reality where they might need to concede to our demands to avoid further legal complications. During the lunch break, the tension was palpable. My father's looks could kill, directed sharply at me, while my mother played the part of the distressed spouse, attempting to garner sympathy, a performance that failed to resonate with anyone present. Their actions couldn't disguise the truth. It was all for show. I cannot overstate the support I've received from my friends and business partners. Their solidarity has been a constant source of strength throughout these trying times. Just recently, one of my closest friends reassured me of his support, offering a listening ear for whatever I might need to unload emotionally. This gesture was a poignant reminder of the incredible support system I have in place. Despite the challenges presented by my family situation, I find myself profoundly thankful for the genuine connections I've cultivated outside of that dynamic. The love and support from my friends and my aunt have been invaluable, helping me navigate through this tumultuous period. Their presence in my life is a testament to the fact that family isn't just about blood relations. It's also about the people who stand by you when you need them the most. For this, I am truly grateful. Raising my son alone has been the most challenging and rewarding journey of my life. When his mother left us just days after his birth, claiming she wasn't ready to be a parent, it felt like my world was crumbling. She walked out of the hospital without looking back, leaving me, a 21-year-old guy with a newborn in my arms. I often wondered if her mother, my then mother-in-law, had influenced her decision. She had always been vocal about how her daughter was too young for children, and her sudden departure seemed too calculated, too cold, to be just a spur-of-the-moment decision. In the early days, I juggled multiple jobs while caring for my son. I had to drop out of college and take on any work I could find to ensure we had enough to get by. It was a grueling time, but the kindness of friends and strangers kept us afloat. People from our community would often drop by with meals, offer to babysit, or just lend an ear when things got overwhelming. Their generosity was a beacon during my darkest hours. As my son grew, so did the challenges. I enrolled him in the local kindergarten, which allowed me to work more stable hours. Still, every day was a balancing act of work, childcare, and household responsibilities. My son, curious as ever, started asking questions about his mother as he got older. Each query was a dagger to my heart, but I shielded him from the bitterness and resentment I felt towards her. I maintained a narrative that was as neutral as possible to preserve his image of her. During this time, I leaned heavily on my sister, who became a second mother to my son. She was instrumental in helping him with homework, teaching him life skills, and providing the maternal figure he lacked. My father also stepped in as a role model, taking him fishing, teaching him how to fix things around the house, and instilling in him the values I cherished. Years passed, and the pain of his mother's abandonment gradually dulled. We created our own little world, filled with family traditions, weekend outings, and lots of laughter. My son excelled in school, especially in science and math, and developed a passion for robotics. His achievements were a testament to his resilience and the supportive environment we had nurtured. However, just as we were adjusting to our new normal, my son's mother reappeared. It was out of the blue, a message on social media asking to reconnect and meet her son. The news shook me deeply. All the old wounds reopened, the betrayal, the hurt, the years of hardship without her. She wanted to explain herself, to make amends, claiming she had changed and wanted to be part of her son's life. The decision to let her back in was not mine to make alone. I sat down with my son, now a teenager, and discussed it. He was understandably angry and confused, torn between the desire to meet the woman who gave him life and the resentment for the years she'd missed. We decided to take it slow, starting with emails and phone calls. The conversations were stilted at first. She talked about her new life, her regrets, the therapy she'd undergone to come to terms with her past decisions. My son listened, asked tough questions, and processed everything with a maturity beyond his years. It was a slow and often painful process, but it was necessary for his emotional closure. Today, my son is 25 and thriving. He has a degree in mechanical engineering and a promising career ahead of him. His relationship with his mother is cautious but slowly improving. As for me, I've found peace in seeing him happy and fulfilled. The journey wasn't easy, but it shaped us into the family we are today, stronger, closer, and more resilient than ever. So recently, mother-in-law appeared on our doorstep without a call, without any kind of notification. She was just there, and she had come to visit her grandson. I couldn't believe my ears. And at first I almost didn't recognize her because so many years have passed after all, and she was behaving as if she was a caring grandmother who had come to see her grandchild like she does all the time. Not like she was gone for 25 years when my son saw her. He didn't recognize her either. I have shown him pictures of his mother and his grandmother just in case they show up one day. But I never really thought that they would. She ran up to him and hugged him just like a loving grandmother would, asking how he's doing and how big and beautiful he has become. And he pushed her away and looked kind of confused. I told him that it's his grandmother who randomly showed up to visit him, and he was like, "Oh," and walked away from her mother-in-law. Didn't take this reaction very well. She looked at me and was like, "What have you taught him if he doesn't even say hello to his grandmother? He's looking at me as if I'm a stranger, haven't you told him about his mother? And we are showing him our pictures. Well, technically, you are a stranger mother-in-law. He had never seen you in person, so why are you so surprised? You show up out of thin air after 25 years, when he's all grown up, and expect him to treat you with love. Isn't it kind of delusional? My son said that did show me your picture, but I needed no picture. I needed you to be there for me. He was quite hateful with her, throwing question after question at her, and mother-in-law's responses were so incredibly narrow-minded, it looked like she wasn't expecting him to ask any questions. He asked her where his mother was, and mother-in-law was like, "Oh, she's doing very well. She's living together with a great man, and she has two nice kids. She has gotten over that misunderstanding about your birth. She was acting as if her daughter was the victim here, as if we were the ones who left her. He asked her, why did his mother abandon him? Mother-in-law said, well, she was such a young girl, it would be crazy for her to have a child at that age. She had her whole life ahead of her, and a baby would only be an obstacle. You must understand it. She didn't want to lose her freedom. Honestly, her daughter was older than me when our son was born. She was 24. I don't think it's too early to have a child. It's not like she was 14 or something. Actually, age has nothing to do with it. I could have given up my son, too. I was very young as well, but I didn't because I loved him and I wanted to be his father. At this point, I wanted to show mother-in-law the door. Obviously, she wasn't welcome in our house, but my son stopped me. He had one more question. He asked why mother-in-law didn't want to be his grandmother. His mother left him fine. But why did mother-in-law leave him to mother-in-law? Said, well, I had no time to take care of you. I was a young woman too. I had my life too. Then grandkids are only obligated to take care of grandparents when they're old, and that's why I'm here. Then my son told her to leave and never come back. He said he doesn't want to see her ever again, and he won't help her with anything really quick. If you're enjoying the video, don't forget to drop a link. And as she was leaving, she attacked me like that's what I thought. A man alone cannot raise a proper human being. Such a rude and impolite boy. He would have turned out better in an orphanage than with you. So according to mother-in-law, the conclusion is, don't have children while you're young. Or if you do, feel free to leave them, and then come back a few decades later, and they'll love you, even though they have never received any kind of care from you. But seriously, what the hell was she expecting? Now for the comments before the updates, not the idiot, that stupid bee. That whole side of the family is horrible. I had my daughter May of this year when I was 24 years old, turned 25 in September, and my husband only just turned 22 when she was born. You're absolutely right. It's not freaking 14 years old. You're in adult life. Happens. I could never ever imagine walking out on my daughter and husband like that. It's despicable. Freak them. You're a great father who raised a wonderful son. But the idiot. I'm actually glad this happened. You kicked ass as a father and raised someone who sounds like a strong young man. This strong young man just got to see the difference between the father who raised him and the grandmother and mother who abandoned him for utterly ridiculous reasons. Well then, about the idiot you probably already have. But just in case, it would be good to talk to him about this. Just an open talk where he can explain how he feels and where you can help him if he has any trouble coping with it. It may not seem like a big deal and that he's handled it really well, but it would still be good just to make sure and to show that he can talk about these things with you. If he doesn't want to, don't press him or anything. Just let him know you're there. Update 1. Life has a way of throwing surprises, and just when you think you've settled into a comfortable rhythm, it disrupts everything with a startling jolt. That's exactly what happened when, out of the blue, my son, now a mature and self-reliant 25-year-old, received a mysterious friend request on social media. It was from an account bearing the name and image of his long-absent grandmother. Naturally, this sudden attempt at digital reconnection caught us off guard, igniting a mix of curiosity and old wounds. This wasn't just a simple friend request. It was the opening gambit in what turned out to be a meticulously planned maneuver by his grandmother to orchestrate a reunion between my son and his mother. The mother who had decisively walked out of our lives a quarter century ago, right after his birth, claiming she was not ready to be a parent. The same woman who refused even the basic maternal gestures of holding her newborn, leaving me, a bewildered 21-year-old, to pick up the pieces. My son, always analytical, decided to probe the situation by messaging his grandmother directly through social media. He confronted her about the decades of silence, demanding to know why she chose this moment to reach out. The digital confrontation was tense. His grandmother's messages were filled with awkward justifications and vague sentiments about regrets and lost time. During their conversation, she dropped another bombshell. Not only did she want to reconnect, but she was also acting as an intermediary for his mother, who was now expressing a desire to meet him. According to her, his mother had experienced a profound change of heart and now wanted to make amends for the years lost. My son's reaction was a complex tapestry of emotions. There was anger, certainly, for the years of abandonment and the emotional baggage that came with it. But there was also an undeniable spark of curiosity about the woman who had given him life. Could someone truly change that much? And what did she want from him now? After much deliberation and numerous discussions between us, my son decided he would meet his mother, but he set strict boundaries. He chose a neutral location, a quiet, nondescript cafe downtown, and made it clear that he was in control of the interaction. This was not a reunion, it was an evaluation. The day of the meeting was fraught with tension. I accompanied him to the cafe, offering silent support. His mother arrived, looking older and more vulnerable than the last image he had of her from an old photograph I had kept. The initial moments were awkward, the air thick with unspoken emotions and tentative glances. As they talked, his mother tried to explain herself. She spoke of her youth, her overwhelming fears, and the pressures she felt from her own mother, who, according to her, had subtly coerced her into abandoning her parental duties for a life she was ill-prepared to forfeit at the time. She talked about her new family, her attempts at motherhood again, and how these experiences had eventually brought her to a place of regret and desire for forgiveness. My son listened, his face a mask of calm that belied the turmoil inside. He questioned her motives, her absence, and the impact of her decisions on his life. Each answer she gave seemed to unravel more of the carefully curated facade of regret she presented. It became clear that while she sought forgiveness, she was still grappling with the full extent of her actions. The meeting ended with a cautious agreement from my son to remain in tentative contact, establishing boundaries that she would have to respect if she wished to be part of his life. As we walked away from the cafe, he squeezed my hand, a silent acknowledgement of the journey we had undertaken together, without her. In the days following, my son wrestled with the concepts of forgiveness and what it means to rebuild trust. He was open about his feelings, discussing them with me, and even with friends who had become like family over the years. It was a process, he realized, that would not be hurried. As for me, I was left to ponder the roles we play in our children's lives. The encounter had reaffirmed my role not just as a caregiver, but as a steadfast pillar in the unpredictable storm that life can sometimes be. Our story, marked by absence and resilience, had taken a new turn, but it was far from over. It was a reminder that sometimes the family we create is stronger than the one we are born into, and love, not blood, defines our bonds. Update 2. After that whole cafe meetup, which was already a massive step for my son, his mom threw us another curveball. Out of the blue, she hits him up wanting him to come to this big family bash. She's talking about how he's got half-siblings he's never met and a bunch of relatives who apparently have been in the dark about him all these years. It sounded like a full-on family reunion from a movie or something. So here's the deal. This invite comes out of nowhere and she's laying it on thick, trying to paint this picture of a big, happy family that just happens to have missed a few decades of birthdays, graduations, you name it. My son, he's naturally skeptical. Like, why now? After 25 years of radio silence, she wants to play happy families? It just didn't sit right with either of us. Given everything that's gone down, we decided to do a bit of digging before he even thought about RSVPing to this shindig. A little poking around on social media and some discreet chats with people who kinda know the situation, and boom, we uncover that she's tangled up in this nasty legal mess over some family inheritance. Talk about drama. This whole reunion reeked of her needing something more than just family bonding. Armed with this info, my son decides to confront her. Just straight up asks her on the phone if this whole reunion is because she needs a favor with her financial mess. And get this, she actually admits it. Says she thought maybe he could sway the family in her favor because he's the long-lost son suddenly back in the picture. Pretty manipulative, right? So my son, he's pretty gutted by this. There were these tiny hopes that maybe, just maybe, she was trying to make things right. But nope, it was all just another scheme. He tells her straight up, no thanks, on the family meetup. Tells her he's not interested in being part of some plot in her financial drama. Her reaction? She's frustrated, maybe even a bit angry, and tries to play the victim card, like how he's misunderstanding her intentions, but he's not buying it, and they end up ending the call on pretty sour terms. The next few days are rough on him. He's wrestling with all these feelings of disappointment and betrayal. We talk a lot about what family means, about the people who've really been there for him versus those who just show up when they need something. It's a tough lesson, sure, but it's also clarifying. He decides to stick to the family he knows has his back. Friends, me, people who've stepped up without any hidden agendas. This whole mess has just reinforced for him that family isn't just about blood. It's about who you can trust and who supports you without conditions. As for the mom, well, she's kind of back to square one with us. My son's door isn't completely closed, but he's going to need some real, genuine effort from her side, no strings attached, before he considers opening it again. And honestly, he's not holding his breath. We've both learned a lot from this saga. It's been a roller coaster for sure, but also a stark reminder of the values we hold dear. In the end, he's come out stronger, more aware of who he is and what he stands for. And as for me, I couldn't be prouder of how he's handled this whole thing. It's not every day you see someone face this kind of emotional chaos with such maturity. Update 3. Just when we thought things were simmering down and maybe, just maybe, we could get a little peace, my son's mom decided to crank the drama up to 11. Totally out of the blue, she shows up at our place. No warning, no call, nothing. Just rings the bell like she's dropping by for a casual Sunday brunch. I open the door, and there she is, standing on the porch looking all kinds of stressed and determined. Honestly, it felt like something straight out of a soap opera. She's got that look, like she's about to unleash something big. She asked to talk to her son, but he's not having any of it. After all the emotional gymnastics she's put him through, he's in no mood to deal with more surprises. He just flat out refuses to even come to the door. And that's when the bomb drops. She starts going off right there on the doorstep, accusing me of turning her own son against her. According to her, I've spent the last 25 years filling his head with negative stuff about her, making sure he hates her guts. She's getting louder by the minute, throwing around blame like confetti at a parade. She's painting this picture where I'm the villain, keeping her away from her son, making it impossible for her to have a relationship with him. It's like she's rewritten history, forgetting the part where she walked away and stayed away. The audacity of her rewriting our past and trying to play the victim now, it's just wild. So there I am, standing in my own doorway, having to defend myself and the life choices I made to raise our son the best way I knew how, alone. I remind her, as calmly as I can manage while she's going off, that she chose to leave. She chose the silence. Every decision I made was for our son, to give him the stability and love he deserved, the stuff she opted out of providing. Things just escalate from there. She's raising her voice, I'm trying to keep it together, and the neighbors are starting to peek out their curtains. It's turning into a real spectacle, the kind you just never want to be part of. Finally, when it's clear she's not leaving and she's just ramping up more, I have no choice. I call the cops. Yeah, it felt extreme, but what else was I supposed to do? She was causing a scene, refusing to leave, and frankly, it was getting a little scary. The cops show up, and they have to escort her off the property. It's intense, embarrassing, and just really sad when you think about it. After all that drama, my son and I sit down for a serious heart-to-heart. He's really shaken up, angry, upset, the whole 9 yards. It's one thing to handle personal family issues in private, but having it all spill out like that, publicly, it's rough on anyone. He's firm on his decision after tonight. No more Mrs. Nice Guy, no more chances. The way she handled everything, just showing up, making accusations, refusing to leave, it's just sealed the deal for him. He's done, and honestly, I support him 100%. We talk about how we'll handle any future attempts from her to reach out, deciding that strong boundaries are the way to go. That night was a real trial by fire. It tested us, no doubt about it, but if anything, it just made our bond stronger. It's a stark reminder that not all family drama can be neatly resolved, and sometimes you just have to stand your ground and protect your peace. This whole saga, as crazy as it's been, has really shown us the importance of sticking together and supporting each other through thick and thin. And whatever comes next, I know we'll handle it together, just like we always have. Update 4. My son, bless his heart, has gone and done something absolutely wonderful. He's gotten engaged. And let me tell you, the story of how he popped the question is straight out of a romance movie. But of course, there's a twist in the tale, because what's a family saga without a little unexpected drama, right? First off, the backstory on the Lovebirds. My son met his now fiancée about a year back. They were introduced by some mutual friends at a local music festival. Sparks flew, the stars aligned, you know the drill. She's this vibrant, super smart woman who just clicks with him on every level. She's got this infectious laugh that just lights up the room and a sense of humor that can keep up with his. Watching them together, it's like they've known each other for lifetimes. Now, on to the proposal, because this deserves its own spotlight. My son planned this epic beach sunset scenario, all secretive and hush-hush. He was sneaking around, making calls, and booking things on the down low. He even asked for my advice on the ring, wanted something classic but with a twist, something that screamed her. The day of the proposal, he was a bundle of nerves. He took her to this gorgeous secluded spot on the beach, had a picnic set up with all her favorite foods, and even managed to sneak in a playlist of their favorite songs in the background. As the sun was setting, right there with the sand between their toes and the sound of the waves, he got down on one knee and did the whole romantic spiel. She was completely taken aback. Tears, laughter, the whole 9 yards. She said yes, of course. He called me right after, and he was so choked up he could barely speak. I mean, my heart was bursting for him. Fast forward to now, and we're knee-deep in wedding planning. They want something small but memorable, just close friends and family, in this lovely little vineyard they both love. We've been tasting cakes, looking at flowers, the works. It's been a whirlwind of happy plans and Pinterest boards. But here's the kicker. Just as we're getting into the groove of things, an RSVP lands in our mailbox that throws us for a loop. It's from none other than my son's grandmother. No heads up, no prior communication, just an RSVP out of the blue saying she's coming. Mind you, we didn't even send her a direct invite. She must have gotten wind of the wedding from another family member. This threw us a bit off balance. My son had mixed feelings about it. There's a lot of history there, a lot of hurt from past actions. We sat down, had a real talk about what this meant, how he felt about her possibly being there. It's his big day, and the last thing I want is for him to feel uncomfortable or on edge. After a good long chat, we decided we're going to approach this with cautious optimism. Maybe it's her way of trying to mend fences, maybe not, but we're not going to let it overshadow the whole event. The main thing is my son's happiness and celebrating this incredible new chapter in his life with his soon-to-be wife. So despite the surprise RSVP, we're keeping our eyes on the prize, this beautiful wedding and the even more beautiful marriage that'll follow. I'm just so proud of him, stepping into this new role as a husband with so much love and maturity. As for me, I'm just thrilled to bits. I can't wait to see him stand there at the altar, starting this wonderful journey with a woman who's as fantastic as he is. We're going to make sure this wedding is nothing short of magical come what may. Here's to new beginnings, even if they come with a little unexpected twist. Update 5. Let's start with Grandma. Not only did she decide to RSVP out of nowhere, but she also took it upon herself to become the unsolicited wedding planner. Picture this. Emails flooding in at all hours with her helpful suggestions on everything. Change the venue. Check. Redo the entire menu. Check. Oh, and let's not forget about calling our carefully chosen vendors to give her 2 cents without anyone asking her to. As if Grandma on a wedding planning spree wasn't enough. Enter stage right, my son's mother. She's been pretty much off the radar, only popping up now and then with some emotional phone call. But now she's suddenly all about the wedding. She calls my son, tears in her voice, begging for a pivotal role in the ceremony. She wants to give a big, heartfelt speech, her chance to spill her guts about past mistakes and missed years in front of a captive audience. Yep, you guessed it. Super awkward. The real showdown happened at what was supposed to be a chill menu tasting session. Just us, the lovely couple, and some delicious food. But nope, Grandma and Mom decided it was the perfect event to crash. They showed up uninvited and ready for action. Grandma immediately started nitpicking everything from the appetizers to the dessert choices, while Mom pulled my son aside every chance she got, laying on the guilt thick, trying to manipulate him into giving her a spotlight role at the wedding. Midway through the tasting, things escalated. Mom, maybe feeling bold with Grandma backing her up, launched into a full-blown tirade against me right there in front of the caterers, mind you. She accused me of alienating her from her son, of filling his head with negativity about her all these years. It was intense. Accusations flying, tears flowing, the whole 9 yards. My son, who's usually the calm in any storm, had enough. He stood up, cleared his throat, and delivered what was probably the speech of his life. He told them both in no uncertain terms that this was his wedding, a celebration of his future, not a stage for airing family grievances. And then he dropped the bomb. If they couldn't get with the program and cut out the drama, they wouldn't be welcome at the wedding. Mike, drop. The room went silent. It was one of those moments where you could literally hear a pin drop. Post-tasting showdown. My son and his fiancée got together and made some tough calls. They sent out a very diplomatic yet firm message to both Mom and Grandma. The gist? Any more antics? Any more drama? And they'd be officially uninvited from the wedding. It was harsh, maybe, but necessary to keep their big day about love and joy, not past hurts and drama. Now we're in this weird calm before the storm phase. Invitations are out. RSVP are in, including those controversial ones. And we're a few weeks out from the big day. Everything's eerily quiet on the Mom and Grandma front, which is both a relief, and if I'm honest, a bit nerve-wracking. We're all kind of on edge, half expecting some last-minute theatrics. Through all this craziness, though, I've seen my son and his fiancée handle things with such grace and unity. It's clear they're ready to take on whatever life throws at them as a team. And as for me, I'm just proud and excited to see them tie the knot. I'm focusing on the joy of the upcoming celebration, the start of their new life together, and making sure that this wedding is as magical as they deserve, come what may. So here's to love overcoming drama, to new beginnings, and to a wedding day that will hopefully be as smooth as the road to getting there was bumpy. I'm smack dab in the middle of having two siblings, and we all grew up in this quaint little town. It's the kind of place where everyone knows each other, which can be nice but also a bit too much at times. My dad's the kind of guy who's always working, like really hard, but he's not the type to talk about his feelings or anything like that, and now he's thinking about hanging up his boots and retiring. My mom, on the other hand, is the complete opposite. She's always been the homemaker, sticking strictly to the old traditional values she grew up with. They're both from a conservative and religious background. I love them. They're my parents, after all. But I've always felt like I never quite lived up to their expectations. They seem to see me as the family letdown, which stings a bit. Then there's my older brother. He's literally the golden boy of the family. At 40, he's settled down, married a woman who is pretty, but doesn't really express much of herself. She's super quiet and doesn't seem to have much to say. They have two sons who are all about sports, specifically the kind where you might end up with a bruise or two. Honestly, they can be pretty over the top and a handful. Definitely not the calm, quiet types. My brother sells cars for a living at a local dealership. It's what he's chosen to do as an adult, and he seems to think it's his job to guide me too. But the way he treats me feels more like he sees me as someone who can't manage on his own, like I'm someone who needs constant help and should be super thankful for any attention he gives. He often dishes out advice, but it feels more like he's just rubbing in how great he thinks his life is. He likes to brag about his big house, his fancy cars, and his wife who looks like a trophy. He goes on about his sporty kids, his powerboat, his ATVs, pretty much painting a picture of this perfect life. It makes me feel even more like the odd one out. Growing up, I was the kid who was too emotional, too quick to tears, and always making excuses for why things didn't go right for me. School was a real struggle. I didn't fit in with the tough, sporty crowd. I wasn't one of those big, strong guys who thrived on physical games and roughhousing. Instead, I was the target for jokes and wasn't really included in things, which just added to feeling like I didn't belong. I totally get it. Like a lot of other kids in my town, I have asthma. But here's the kicker. My parents don't really believe asthma is a legit health issue. On top of that, I've been dealing with depression for as long as I can remember, and physically, I was never the kind of kid who could sprint down a field or throw a football straight. This didn't help with my parents' constant comparisons. They'd often point out how I wasn't as smart or as outgoing as my older brother. It was tough, and I ended up finishing high school with a pretty average 2.5 GPA. I managed to save up some money and started college, but things didn't pan out, and I dropped out in my second year. This decision became a frequent topic of conversation, and not in a good way. Then there's my younger sister. She was pretty much the family's princess, and I can't say much about her since I moved out when she hit her teenage years. Most of what I feel about her comes from seeing her as an adult. She's not a bad person by any means, just a bit pampered. She tends to mimic the way my parents and brother treat me, probably because it's easier than being the target herself. She got married super young at 19, had a huge fancy wedding, and now has 3 kids. Out of her kids, the one I connect with the most is her middle child. I guess I see a bit of myself in her because she's also the middle child and she gets picked on a lot. It feels like I understand her struggles more, probably because they remind me of my own. After I left college, I really leaned into my introverted, nerdy side. I found a job at a local gaming and comic book store, a place I loved, but sadly, it closed down over 7 years ago. Despite that, my parents still talk about it like I work there today. But working there wasn't all for nothing, because I met another geek who had big plans. Together, we started a tech support business that really took off. After a while, my business partner decided to sell our company to a larger corporation. As part of the deal, I was bought out with a mix of cash and stock options, and those stocks ended up doing really well. With some smart moves, I invested and even started a few more businesses on the side, many of which turned out to be quite profitable. I don't like to brag about it too much, but I've managed to build up assets worth over $1 million. Now, I'm the CTO of a new private startup. Despite my financial success, I live pretty simply. I drive an old Saturn that's been around for 15 years. I live in a modest 2-bedroom house in a nice area, and all my furniture is secondhand. I'm still single, I regularly see a therapist, and I stay pretty busy. One of my ongoing challenges is battling alcoholism, which is tough because just like with my asthma and depression, my parents don't really believe it's real. They think it's all in my head. So while my life has had its ups and downs, I've managed to carve out a path for myself that works, even if it's not what everyone else might expect or understand. My parents have this expectation that I should be at their place for dinner every Sunday, but it's not just a quick trip. They live on the other end of the state, so we're talking about a 90 to 120-minute drive each way. That pretty much eats up half of my weekend. Despite this, they seem to think that being single and what my brother likes to label as a mental case, I wouldn't have anything better to do with my time. These dinners can be a real trial. I sit there for 3 hours listening to forced compliments about my brother's latest big sale at the car dealership, or getting unsolicited advice on how I should grow up, get married, and be a proper adult. If I ever miss one of these dinners, it's guaranteed to be the main topic of conversation at the next one. Although they've never outright called me a moocher, the implication hangs in the air, which is both confusing and frustrating. Honestly, I often find myself questioning why I keep going to these dinners when I talk to my therapist. Any success I've achieved is either minimized or twisted into something negative by my family. Until very recently, everyone back home still thought I was working at the now closed gaming store. My past retail job was always looked down on compared to my brother's supposedly more adult, outgoing, and successful career. This contrast made it tough to share the true state of my life and successes with anyone from back home. In my family, games and comics were always brushed off as childish hobbies. Whenever I tried to bring up technology, a field I'm actually an expert in, my brother would talk over me as if I didn't know a thing. I usually just let him ramble on. It was clear to me that he was spouting nonsense, but I was hesitant to call him out. I didn't want to have to explain my expertise, which would inevitably lead to explaining more about what I do. Deep down, I think I was scared that they wouldn't take my career seriously, and it might change how they saw everything about me. It's fair to say, I've been a bit of a mess. However, everything changed last month. Somehow, my brother got his hands on some of my personal information. He actually hired a private investigator to run what he claimed was an employer background check on me. I suspect he and my parents were planning some kind of intervention. What they discovered completely blindsided them. They found out about my actual net worth, that I wasn't living in some rundown place, and other personal details I'd kept private, especially because my work involves security. I even got alerts about some unauthorized attempts to pull my credit report. After putting two and two together, I figured out what had happened. This revelation has forced everything into the open, and now I have to navigate this unexpected shift in how my family views me. It's a lot to process, especially considering the underestimation and misunderstandings that have been part of my relationship with them for so long. I was so furious about the breach of my privacy that I ended up hiring the same private investigator agency to dig into my family's finances. It turns out my brother was living far beyond his means. The investigation revealed several past arrests for DWI and public drunkenness, along with domestic disturbance calls and a file with Child Protective Services, although no current charges were active. He was also struggling with scheduled IRS back payments and was juggling 3 mortgage loans on his house. His credit was a disaster. In contrast, my parents lived modestly, with very little to their names beyond what I already knew, practical and quite sensible financially. I didn't even bother to check up on my sister. When I showed up at the next family dinner, I was ready to confront them, potentially burning some bridges. However, the atmosphere I walked into was unexpectedly different. My parents began treating me with a kind of awkward reverence, as if I had suddenly become the golden child. This shift made my brother visibly agitated. Halfway through dinner, he lost his composure. In an attempt to regain some ground, he started boasting about recent sales commissions and a supposed promotion. I simply acknowledged these achievements, subtly reminding him of his IRS troubles, the loans, and his stretched credit situation, essentially acknowledging the good while highlighting the reality of his financial mess. The whole situation was strangely depressing. The sudden change in my parents' behavior towards me felt insincere and forced, turning what was already a tense family dynamic into something even more uncomfortable. He denied everything initially, but when I handed him a copy of the report, I pointed out that he was the one who inadvertently recommended the agency by using it to investigate me. I must admit, there was a brief moment where that felt satisfying. My parents reacted with dramatic surprise, scolding him, but it was clear they were in on it too. They had to have provided my social security number for him to get the report. The whole scene was profoundly unsettling. There was no pleasure in the revelation or the ensuing argument. It crystallized my disdain for my family, highlighting their greed and cowardice. Over the next hour, as accusations flew, they started throwing each other under the bus while I tried to stay as quiet as possible. Occasionally, they turned their frustration towards me, and I responded with nonchalant one-word answers or just shrugged. Meanwhile, my sister, her husband, my brother's wife, and all 5 kids sat there dumbfounded, witnessing a family unraveling like never before. Usually, our gatherings are mundane and predictable. My mother would start the conversation, my father would interject with grunts, my brother and his wife would boast about their lives, and my sister would share updates whenever she could. This breakdown was unlike anything our family dinners had ever seen, leaving everyone at the table in shocked silence, grappling with the sudden exposure of deep-seated issues that had long been simmering beneath the surface of our familial relations. The family dinner was tumultuous, to say the least. Alongside the usual subtle jabs about how I should look up to my brother and be a real man, the conversation spiraled into a loud, heated debate among my mom, dad, and brother. They dredged up every piece of old family drama, stuff from 20, 30 years ago, arguing over whose fault everything was. It was like watching everything unravel in real time, a total free-for-all. Every negative feeling I had harbored about my family seemed to be validated in those moments. You might think I'd feel some sense of triumph or justice, but honestly, I just felt terrible. I realized I might not have handled the situation well. I knew they weren't great people, but what did I really hope to gain by exposing my brother's misdeeds? Now his kids were aware of his past, which wasn't something I had intended to happen. The evening came to a head when my brother, red-faced with fury, lashed out at me. He blamed me for all the family's problems, culminating in the harsh words, "You should have never been born." That moment was shocking, not just because of his words, but because I saw my parents trying to quiet him down, a panic move I had never witnessed before. Despite their attempts to intervene, they never really acknowledged their own role in how they had treated me over the years. It was a stark, painful reminder of the deep issues in our family dynamics, leaving me with a mix of vindication and profound sadness. When I couldn't take it anymore, I stood up and announced that I was done with these dinners and wouldn't be coming back. That's when my parents threw another accusation my way. They claimed I was withholding help from a niece or nephew who had some ailment, suggesting that I could have fixed it but chose to ignore it. This was news to me. I had never been made aware of any such issue, nor had anyone reached out to me for help. I suspect they might have been making it up right there on the spot, but I didn't challenge it. Instead, I reminded them, "I thought you believed I still worked at a comic book store." That place hadn't been in business since 2011, a fact I'd mentioned more than once, but they never seemed to grasp. The way they had rewritten our family history was not only appalling, but downright embarrassing. Overwhelmed and frustrated, I just walked out and drove home. Now I'm left with mixed feelings. On one hand, I feel violated that they know about my financial worth, which I'm sure will lead to pressure to pay them back, especially since I've seen them do the same with my brother. On the other hand, I do acknowledge and appreciate that my parents provided for my basic needs, food, water, and shelter, during my upbringing. It's a complex tangle of gratitude, resentment, and newfound boundaries that I'll need to navigate carefully, especially as they now have expectations linked to my financial success. This dynamic shift is something I'll likely be unpacking for some time, possibly with the help of my therapist. It's clear that setting firm boundaries will be crucial moving forward. Honestly, I wasn't really the favorite kid in my family. Growing up was tough in that way. Even though my parents never hit me, they didn't do much to stop my brother when he was mean to me. He used to punch, kick, and say really hurtful things to me, and my parents just ignored it, pretending it wasn't happening. They don't even believe that being mean with words, that's what I mean by verbal A, is an actual bad thing. But it really hurt. After dealing with this for so long, I've reached a point where I just can't do it anymore. I still know they're my family, but I feel like I need to step away from them for good. I don't wish them anything bad. I just think it's better for me to not be around them anymore and start a new chapter on my own. Now looking ahead, I wonder what will happen if I meet someone special, like a girlfriend, and we decide to get married and have kids. How will I handle things with my family then? It's something I'm trying to figure out because it could get pretty complicated. How do I introduce my new family to my old family if I'm not really talking to them anymore? That's a big question on my mind. Now for the comment before reading the update. Go. No contact. The only reason they wanted you around before was so they could belittle you to make themselves feel good. And the only reason they want you around now is to get some of your money. Your family is no reflection of you, frankly. They all suck. You are not a loser. You actually sound like a pretty neat person who got the wrong end of the deal when it came to family. Block their numbers and go live your life without them. I think you did an outstanding job. Lower your contact with your family as much as you like. They are only after your money, so you don't have to have anything to do with them on anything but your own terms. Keep talking to your therapist to help you move into a life without them dragging you down. Go. No contact? Absolutely. If you can pack your things and move to a new city for a fresh start regarding dating, lots of people are estranged from their families. It can be weird to explain to a potential partner, especially if their familial ties are strong. But you certainly are not the first person who has had to take drastic steps like this. You will build a new family when the time is right. In the meantime, there are a couple of things I think you should do. if you haven't already put a security freeze on your credit accounts. If your brother used resources from the car dealership to pull this info on you, you may want to consider telling them. I don't think they would be pleased to hear they were complicit in fraud. Also, get a lawyer. You are young, but catastrophes happen. And currently, your parents are next of kin by default and will inherit everything. Maybe you don't care about that, but if you would prefer to see your assets, go to someone else. Get it in writing as soon as possible. Lastly, find a good counselor. You may experience some grief in the coming months, and it will be helpful to talk through it with a professional. Update. Man, after that epic showdown at dinner, driving back home felt like escaping a battlefield. The road was quiet, just me and my thoughts buzzing through the night. By the time I pulled into my driveway, I knew something had to change. I couldn't keep doing these family dinners, not without losing my sanity. Over the next few weeks, I kept to myself, focusing on work and my own peace of mind. The comic books and tech gadgets around my house weren't just distractions, they were my sanctuary. I ramped up my therapy sessions too, hashing out ways to keep my family at arm's length without cutting them out completely. My therapist, Dr. Bennett, was a lifesaver, talking me through strategies for setting boundaries that felt more like building a fort than putting up a wall. As the weather warmed up, my mind started wandering to the future, particularly about relationships. I'd been single for a while, focusing on myself, but the idea of meeting someone special started to feel not just possible, but likely. And then, just like something out of a comic book, Eva walked into my life. We met at a tech conference. She was giving a talk on cybersecurity, and I was hooked not just by the topic, but by her charisma. She was brilliant, grounded, and she got me. She also had this way of seeing family that was all about love, but with boundaries like steel. As things with Ava got serious, the elephant in the room was how to introduce her to my family circus. We spent many nights talking over pizza about how to handle it. We agreed on a game plan: keep family meetups light, public, and short. Eva was on board to back me up, which was a game changer. We started with coffee meetups. I reintroduced myself to the family gatherings, this time with Eva. Predictably, the first couple of times were awkward as heck. My parents were overly polite, tiptoeing around me like I might bolt at any second. And my brother, well, he looked like he wanted to say a million things but couldn't get the words out. My sister and her kids, though, were a breath of fresh air. Her middle kid, who reminded me so much of myself, took an instant liking to Eva. These coffee dates became our thing. They were like short expeditions into family land, quick in, quick out. It let me reconnect without drowning in the drama, and surprisingly, it started to work. My family slowly got used to this new setup. They began to respect my boundaries, maybe realizing that this was the only way to keep me in their lives. As Eva and I grew closer, I started thinking more about the long term. What would our future look like? I could see us building something solid, a family built on respect and love, not obligation and guilt. But I knew the road wouldn't be all smooth sailing. One summer evening, as Eva and I were walking by the lake, talking about maybe moving in together, I realized how far I'd come. From feeling like the family letdown to standing on my own with someone who truly got me, it was like night and day. Looking ahead, I'm cautiously optimistic. I know there'll be bumps down the road. Heck, maybe some potholes the size of craters. But with Ava, I feel ready for it. Setting those boundaries with my family wasn't just about protecting myself. It was about making room for new relationships, for a future where I could be happy. And as for those Sunday dinners, well, they're still on the calendar, but now they're on my terms. Sometimes I go, sometimes I don't. When I do, I bring Eva, and together, we handle whatever comes our way. It's not perfect, but it's a whole lot better. It's about finding that balance, you know? Keeping the peace without losing myself in the process. Story 2. Hey everyone, I'm pretty new to sharing my stuff online, so go easy on me. I want to tell you about what's happening in my life because it's a lot to handle right now. Let's start with the main people involved. There's me, my soon-to-be ex-wife Daisy, our daughter Peach, and our son Mario. We're right in the middle of a tough separation that's quickly turning into a pretty brutal divorce. So here's the story. Daisy and I are going our separate ways mainly because she realized earlier this year that she's bisexual. She came out and told me she wanted us to have an open marriage. I wasn't comfortable with that idea at all. The situation got even more complicated when I found out that Daisy had slept with my work partner, who also happens to be one of my closest friends. I'm a cop, so you can imagine how awkward and painful that was. It felt like a double betrayal, both at home and at work. After that, we just couldn't stay together, and I ended up taking some time off to get my head straight. Initially, Daisy tried hard to keep us together. She pleaded and argued that we could make it work, But when it became clear that I was firm on not opening up our marriage, things took a nasty turn. Daisy's attitude changed completely. She started to act out of spite, and things got really ugly. She began using our kids as pawns in this whole mess, which is the last thing I wanted. Daisy started telling Peach that the reason she had to leave our home was that I didn't love them anymore, that I was breaking up our family because I hated them. It was heartbreaking to hear, especially knowing how confused and sad it must make Peach feel. Right now, Daisy is living at her mom's house, and our kids visit her there. During these visits, Daisy and her new partner try to make everything seem like a big fun vacation. They shower Peach and Mario with gifts and treats, probably trying to turn them against me by playing the cool parents. Besides all the emotional drama, Daisy is fighting me on every single practical issue too. We're clashing over everything: how much money one should support the other with, who should get what from our belongings, and the hardest part, how we're going to split our time with Peach and Mario. She disagrees with every agreement we try to set up, and it feels like she's just doing it to make things as hard as possible. Recently, Daisy, who's going to be my ex-wife, has been making things a bit complicated. She's been telling our kids things that make me seem like the bad guy, which isn't fair at all. For example, Peach and Mario started asking me if I don't like Daisy's new friend, let's call them AP, or why it seems like AP loves them more than I do. This kind of talk really messes with their heads. A couple of weeks ago, I was working on something big at my job. I'm a cop, and I was trying to get promoted to homicide detective, which requires a lot of extra hours. So Daisy and I agreed that the kids would stay with her during this busy time, and I'd visit on the weekends. When it was time for them to go to Daisy's, I packed up a big bag for Mario. As I handed him the bag, he looked at me with tears in his eyes and asked, "Are you sending us away because you hate us like Mommy says?" That moment was heart-wrenching. I hugged him tight and reassured him that I loved him very much, and it wasn't true. Despite my efforts, things were still awkward when I went to see them. Last weekend, when I visited, it was really tough. They barely spoke to me. It seemed like they didn't even want to see me, which hurt a lot. I had to wait until today to get another chance to talk with them. When I picked them up, both of them looked really sad. I managed to have a chat with them, and it was clear that Peach, especially, is having a hard time. She still loves me, but it feels like Daisy is making it hard for her to show it. It's a tricky situation, and I'm trying to figure out the best way to handle it so that it doesn't hurt the kids too much. It's tough when things get twisted like this in a family. She feels like she's not allowed to love me, and it's really hurting her. I can't let my princess go through this anymore. They are being actively hurt by this divorce, and now I'm questioning it. Should I continue with the divorce? Is there a way to proceed and spare my kids? Should I suck it up and stay? Now for the comment. You need to tell all of this to your divorce attorney immediately. This is parental alienation, and a judge will almost certainly order a stop to it. But that order will be hard to enforce, so you need to jump on this ASAP and then stay on it. Daisy is a very bad person. Document everything and definitely divorce her. Things will not get better. If you stay, they will get worse. Dude, this is parental alienation, and a big reason why my friend got custody of his kid because his ex-wife was doing this crap. Document and get your attorney on this pronto. Also, therapy for the kiddos. Your ex is a horrible human. Do not let her have your kids anymore. Tell your lawyer what she is doing and let him know that your kids are not seeing their mother without supervision. I would also call CPS and let them know what your ex is doing to your kids. And for the love of your kids, do not get back with her.